What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Smartphone Astro and Deep Sky Dan. And yes, it is finally time to process our Saturn videos. This is part 2 of how to video and process a planet. And of course, we're doing Saturn. Alright, so let's get going. I'm excited. Now, I've already been through all my data for Saturn, and I've chosen the best 3 videos, and then I went in and chose the best video that I thought would be the best quality frames for this tutorial. Now, you're probably looking at my screen here and you see all these galaxies on my screen. This is a really cool image that my buddy Mark Hansen put together. These are basically all his galaxies over like 20 years of imaging using the Observatorio El Sos in Chile. And he uses a huge plane weave telescope to get all these beautiful galaxies, and this is one of his collages, and I've got this beautiful screensaver on my PC. Alright, let's get going. So let me show you kind of what I've already done. I've already been through some processing, and I just want to show you one of some of the stacks that I've done and some of the processing I've done. Now, this first image over here you'll look at, this is Saturn out of auto stackered. It has not been processed, just stacked, no sharpening whatsoever, and you can see it's a little blurry, and there's some details in there. We can see the Cassini division, and then over here this is a little bit sharpened in Ridge Stack 6, and it's a little bit more defined, easier to see some of the planet details. And then over here, this is Photoshop, finished up some of the things that I've done to make it look how I want it. Now, maybe I've oversaturated this a little bit, but I kind of like it. I kind of like the blue rings, and I kind of like you can see more definition on the planet. So this is what I've done, and I'm going to show you how to do something like these today from 1, 2, and 3. Now, if you don't have Photoshop, you don't have to go through into this, but I'm going to show you at least how to use the programs to get to these 2 points, and then if you want to use your Photoshop, you can go in and do something like this. Alright, well, let's get started. Back out of these. Now, like I told you before, I went through my videos and chose the top 3 and then decided on the best one to use to make it easy for this tutorial. So let me just show you this video, what I've decided to use, and you can see this is our Saturn here. Now, when I was imaging these planets, or Saturn, that night, the atmosphere looked pretty good, but going back and looking at it, there's a little bit of jumpiness, and maybe my focus was a little bit off, so the details aren't going to be crystal clear, but the atmosphere was pretty decent on this night, so Saturn isn't bouncing around like crazy like a basketball on a court. So, you know, atmosphere is always number one. You have a good atmosphere and you got your focus good, you know, you're going to get decent quality video, you know, and that also depends on the camera you use, the phone you use, so there's a lot of variables involved here. Now, first thing is we're going to be using 3 programs that you can download and use for free, and I will put the link in the description of this tutorial so you can find those easily. And I've got those 3 free programs over here, and the first one that we're going to be using is PIPP, and that stands for Planetary Imaging Preprocessor, and this is key to getting your video over to a proper AVI where you can use it for stacking. And I'm going to show you how to do that. So open up your PIPP, and it's really easy. It doesn't take a lot on your hard drive, and it's not a big file or anything. But processing is a different story. So have that open. Now what you can do here is have your File Explorer open with the file you want to use, and the first thing you want to do is come down here, and we are doing planetary. So you have ISS, AVI Archive, Solar Lunar, Planetary Animations, and you want to make sure you just click Planetary first, and then what you can do is you can drag and just drop this over here, and now you see we've got our Saturn pop up, and I'm just going to maneuver these around. So this is our Saturn over here. This is kind of the frame that it's going to be in, the size frame, and I kind of like the size, so I'm going to keep it at that. Now here's our file, here's your file type, and how many frames are in this 2-minute video. 7,253, I think that's what it was. 60 FPS, 2 minutes, 1 minute, 2 minute, 60 FPS. My size and the date that I imaged, file size, and where it's located. So next thing you want to do is come over here at the top, and you see there's a bar up here with a lot of options. And I'm going to show you the simple way to do this. What to touch and what not to touch. My workflow. You're going to see my personal workflow, what I do. I'm not going to explain everything in full detail to keep this tutorial short, but you're going to see my workflow, exactly what I do. Alright, so come over here to input. Now on this particular area, I don't touch anything. I don't touch anything for this, what I'm going to be doing today. And then next, processing options. Over here, I'm not going to touch anything, and you're going to see in green, make sure that these are checked. In green, these are recommended. In green, and then now if you want to change the cropping, you can change it here, and it will narrow in. Now if you do change it, make sure you hit test options, and it will show it over here. So you can narrow in, widen out, whatever you want to do. I'm going to leave it at 448 because I like this size. So everything here is checked. That looks good. Now quality options. This is really important. We want to enable the quality estimation. So make sure this is checked, and then it's going to open up the rest of everything here. I'm going to drop down to 1,000 frames, and what I'm doing, here is it's going to keep 1,000 of the best frames. That's important. Out of that 7,000 plus frames, it's going to keep the best 1,000. And I'm not going to touch anything else over here. But over here, what I am going to do is, this is called quality weighting, and this is kind of an experimental feature in PIPP. And if you check it, what it's going to do is basically it duplicates the best 25% of the frames twice, the best 25% of the frames twice, and it duplicates the next best 25% of the frames once. I don't know if that makes sense. It does to me. And basically, so if you have 1,000 frame stack like this, your total stack will be 1,750 frames, I believe. Now what it does is, it doesn't help with noise reduction, but you know, for undersampled quality videos such as these cell phone videos aren't perfect. You know, the quality is not always the best. Basically what it does is it influences the final stacked image. So I've been using this, and it seems to work better with a lot of my videos. So I'm going to go ahead and make sure you check that. Alright, next over here is animation. We're not doing any animations, so you don't have to touch anything there. Output options. Now for me, I like to do an AVI. Now what that does is it takes those 1,000 frames and puts them into a video, a 1,000 frame video. If you do like a TIFF, you're going to have 1,000 pictures all separate, and that's a pain in the butt, and I don't like doing that, so I use AVI. So make sure that's checked if you're going to be using that for this tutorial. I recommend you do to follow along. So AVI is checked. And then I don't touch anything else down here or even over here. You don't need to. Now the last one is do processing, and you can see it is ready to go. And basically it's going to open your output folder when complete, so you can have that checked. Now I don't necessarily need to always use that, but if you're not sure where it goes to, you can click it. Mine's going to come down here with this video, where the video is, so I don't need to have that checked. And this is just more information about what's going on while things run. Now one thing to note with PIPP is, depending on the PC you use, your RAM, I have 16 gigabytes of RAM on my laptop, and it's fairly quick with that. Now if you have a desktop with more RAM than that, it's going to process a lot faster. As with any processing in astrophotography, the more RAM you have, the faster if you have an Intel chip or GeForce graphics, the better quality hardware you have, the faster this is going to process. With my laptop, I've got pretty decent stuff. It's a gaming laptop, but I've only got 16 gigabytes of RAM max, so it's okay. It's not super fast and it's not slow. So what you want to do now is, once you get to this point, you're going to hit the start processing, and you're going to see it's going to load your file, and it's processing 7,253 frames, and you're going to watch the percentage here go up. Now this could take some time, could take anywhere from 10, 15, 20 minutes to hours depending on your PC, like I said. You can see I'm already at 1%. I don't know, maybe about 15 minutes or so here on my PC. And then once it's done doing that, down here it's going to sort the frames by quality from the #1 best frame to the worst frame from that 1,000 stack that we set up. So from #1 best to 1,000, which is the worst. And it's going to, once it does that, it's going to load up down here. You can already see I got a new file open. This is the one that it's working on here, and so I know it's going to be, this file is where my AVI is going to be put. So what I'm going to do is, while this is working, I'm going to go ahead and pause this video and then come back when it's just about finished, so you can see how everything finishes up here. Okay guys, I am back, and you can see here we're just about finishing up with the main processing, and that probably took about 15 minutes, 18 minutes or so on my PC, and that was with 16 gigabytes. So if you have a laptop that has 4 gigabyte RAM, 8 gigabyte RAM, it's going to take a lot longer on yours. So hopefully you have a decent PC. Now it's just about finishing up, and once this does, what's going to happen is you're going to see it sort these frames by quality, and this is actually going to be really quick once it gets down to this point. So we're just about done up here, and then once this finishes, I'm going to show you what the AVI looks like, so you can see what 1,000 frames from best to worst looks like. Alright, 99%. One more percent and we'll get rocking. Now you can see up here it's basically tells you what it's using for quality selection. Alright, oh, there we go. Boom, look how fast that is. Sorting out those 1,000 frames really quick. And once it's done, we'll see it pop up over here in this file that I already have. Alright, boom, that is done. And there's some information to tell you exactly what it did. How many seconds it took, 1,205 seconds to complete, so you do the math. Now I'm going to open the folder that it's in, and I do have a player for this. I think it'll play on pretty much anything, but I'm not sure, so I'm going to click on that, and what you're going to see here, oh yeah, this is Windows. It can play on Windows. So here's 1,000 frames from worst to, from best to worst, starting from best and finishing at worst. You can see it's not too bad jumping around there. There is a little noisy, but it's not too bad. So these are things you can work on as you learn how to do this, using your phone. But I think with phone cameras through eyepiece, this is kind of what you can expect. Not so crystal clear images. Now sometimes you can get extremely good video, but that's going to all depend on the atmosphere and viewing conditions and your phone quality, eyepiece, telescope, everything, basically everything. So alright, so that's an AVI, and you can see it's really simple. Just one file with all your images in it, rather than a TIFF with 1,000 separate images. Alright, so I'm going to click out of that. Okay, so now that we've got this done, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to close this here, minimize that. So the next thing that we want to do, now that we got our AVI, is we want to come over here and we're going to use Auto Stacker 3 And do I have that open? It looks like I do have that open already. So now with AutoStacker 3, you can see I've already been tinkering around with some things. So let me just go ahead and back out of this and restart it and show you from the beginning what it's going to look like. So when you open it, you're going to get this 2 panels. First thing we're going to do is we want to work on this one. Now I believe you can drag and drop this AVI, the AVI that you want, over here to open like that, and there you have an open. Alright, so there is our Saturn. Now you're going to start here from the left and you're going to work your way over to this side. So now that we've got that open, image stabilization is on planet, dynamic background checked. Now the next thing we want here is quality estimator, and this should be checked. All this stuff should be checked. I'm pretty sure it's going to choose planet for you. Now this is your quality estimator, and it's going to start out at a 4. It's going to start out at a 4, and this is your noise robust. So this is a normal range of noise starting out at 4. What we're going to do is we're going to analyze our images, our AVI, and local should be checked. You want that. Now what you're going to do is we're going to start out 4. You're going to see a graph pop up here, and watch what happens. So it's going to analyze the images, those 1,000 frames that we have, and it's going to pop up a graph. And now this is your 50% line, this is your worst frames, and these are your best frames. And you can see what's that, right around 70% with a 4 noise robust in the normal range. Now if I bump that up to a 5, it's still in the normal range, but a higher noise robust. And let's analyze that and watch this graph, what happens to it. Let's see what happens. Okay, so not really much change there. Now we're going to go to the last one, a noise robust 6, and this is the last noise robust in the normal range. And let's analyze and see what happens there. So watch this graph again and see what it does. Oh, okay, so it dropped down, so that's not really what we want. So I say let's go back to that 4 and let's analyze the 4 and watch what happens. Okay, so we're going to stick with just the normal. 4 is the normal. We're going to stick with that. Now I've got double stack reference checked. I'm going to be using that. I'm not going to explain everything to you. You can search it if you want. If you hold it over, it'll tell you a little bit about it. But double stack is checked, and then I'm going to come over here. I've got my option as a TIFF. It's going to pop out a TIFF for the finished image. Now down here, this is important. Now you can choose number of frames to stack. How many frames you want to stack. So this would be the box you would put. Now you can do up to 4 stacks and in one stacking session. Now I don't choose number of frames. I like percentage of frames to stack. And I've got a 30, a 20, a 15, and a 10. If you go anything less than a 10, your signal to noise ratio is going to be pretty bad, and you're not going to get a good image. So I don't really go anything more than a 30 unless I had extremely good quality frames where I might use 50% or something. Normally for my planetary images I use a 30, a 20, sometimes a little less, and you can change these. You can type in whatever percentage you want in each box. So say you want to start from a 20, you can go down to a 10, a 15, a 10, and an 8 or something. You can change this and do whatever you want, but you can stack 4 at one time. So I've got 30, 20, 15, and 10. Normalized stack is checked, and you can read about that. RGB align, I'm going to align the colors, save it in my folders, of course. Now another important thing that I'm doing, which has been really helpful, normally this is off drizzle. This is going to help with undersampled images, and we definitely have an undersampled image. So drizzling is going to help smooth out any boxy shapes, and it's going to really help out smooth out the image. So I'm going to do that, and if you hold it on it, it's going to tell you it's going to drizzle 3 times and then enlarge the picture 1.5 times. It's not going to be super noticeable, but you'll notice a little bit bigger of a picture. But I've been using this drizzle, and it's really been helping with the smoothness of my images. So now that you've got this done, you can't hit the stack button. It won't stack. Oh, why is that? Well, we got to come over here. So we're going to set some alignment points on this planet. Now, how are we going to do that? Now, I normally start out with a 24, but usually these smaller alignment points you can go down to a 16. These smaller ones are better for quality images with more details, but I'm not going to really tinker with this too much. You can change the size of your alignment points by moving this up as big as you want. There's some options to choose here. What I've been doing is I just been keeping it at 24 at the normal starting point, and then what I've done is important is, so here at minimum brightness it's going to start you out I think at a 20. Now if I use a 24 size and a 20, what's going to happen? I'm going to hit place AP grid, but first close to edge, don't have that checked. Make sure you have replace and multi-scale checked. We're going to use those. Now if I press this, watch what happens. It's going to put some boxes on the planet. These are my alignment points, and it put 37 on there. Now you'll see these boxes are a little bit out on the edge, and sometimes you'll get them way out here, and you don't want that out in the black. That's not going to help you. You want them as close to the planet as possible. Now how do I change that? Well, I'm going to clear these out, and I'm going to move this minimum brightness up to a 50, and then watch what happens. Now it gave me less alignment points, but they're not so far out on the edges. They're closer into the planet, and that's kind of what we want, something like that. Now you can experiment with it. You can clear this out, and you can drop it down from a 20 to a 30, and you can check and see if you want more alignment points. Now always, from what I've read, when doing alignment points, if you actually do them yourself here with manual draw, where you can click on this and you can come over here and you can put your own boxes in, and you can overlap these boxes. And from what I've heard, a lot of times you can get better quality images doing it this way, rather than using the auto option. And you can overlap them as much as you want and put as many as you want, which is really cool. I've just been using the auto feature. I haven't really experimented too much with this, but this is something that you can if you want. I've just been using the auto, so declick that. Back to 24, and I'm going to put mine back up to around 50 there. We don't need a gazillion alignment points, but you can always try something new at around a 40. That looks pretty good. I can always make the box smaller, down to a minimum 16. Put that back to where I had it, to 50, and you can get a lot more alignment points. But remember, be careful. You want these boxes as close to the planet as possible. You don't want them way out here into this crazy area. So I think 55 alignment points is probably okay. I'm going to keep that. Let's just try it and see what happens. It can't really hurt. You'll have to experiment and see what you like. But these settings over here I've been using. I've been experimenting a lot of these, and I get various results depending on the image quality and my video quality. So I've got 55 alignment points. We're going to use size 16, so they're really small and they're overlapping quite a bit. A 50 minimum brightness. If you really lower that brightness, it's going to bring it out here into the black, and that's not what you want. Now that I've got that set, now we can go ahead and stack down here. This is the button you want to hit, and it's going to be relatively quick. Once you get to this point, you'll see it's going to show you it's working each one. It's going to go through, and it's going to show you the green check mark that it's done. And what I'm going to do here is I'm going to bring this up, and you're going to see this is the folder that all those videos, this is where my video is. So if I click on that folder, you're going to see those stacks pop up in this folder. And now it could take some time depending on the options that you use, how many alignment points, because it's going to work its way through. It's going to start out with this one, 30. This is a percentage that it's going to stack. Now it's working on doing that right now. And this could take a little bit of time, but usually it's pretty quick, and I kind of want you to see how this goes. So let's just hang in here and kind of watch and see what happens, so you get an idea exactly of what's going to happen with all these different options that we chose. Now while that is working, you're going to see some more green arrows pop up here, and it's now in the stacking mode. It's gone through most of these, and now it's going to do this 30 over here, and yeah, it's going pretty quick. Not too bad. But one thing I wanted to show you over here, you can always come over here and you can check your quality of the images. So you have a slider bar here, and if you slide this over, it's going to add in more images, and you can see the percentage. It'll show you a percentage here and the quality of that percentage. That is something to note. If you ever want to check, you can use this slider here before you do this, and you can check, and it'll show you, like for example, 20%, maybe you have a 50% quality at 20%. So you can always have a look and see what percentages of your quality of images are as well. Alright, we're going through. Looks like it's still doing some stacking there, because we don't have any boxes or any new files popping up over here into this. So hopefully we get something going after this works its way. Alright, so again, this is all dependent on your PC, because it is going to use some gigabyte of disk drive. You can see it's using a gigabyte of disk drive right now in memory. It's going to tell you exactly what it's using. And I think we should start to have something popping up here. Not yet, so it looks like it's still stacking. It's working its way through there. It's going through all these different options, and I imagine it should be pretty soon here. So yeah, definitely upgrade your PC. The RAM is probably the most important thing you can do to your PC to make it speed up and get processing faster. So if you have a laptop like I do, upgrade to that 16 gigabytes or more if you have that capability. Also on your desktop, if you can upgrade, I would say do that as well. Let's see, are we getting any images? Let me just back out here and go back in this file and make sure. Looks like we're not quite there yet, so it is still working on some stacking, but it's going pretty quick. So yeah, just definitely upgrade your PC to help all these processing go so much faster. Before, I had 8 gigabytes of RAM on this HP laptop, and I remember trying to process these planetary images, and it took hours to get through PIPP, and then hours to get through AutoStacker. It was ridiculous, and I'm glad I did the upgrade. It was really cheap, and I did it myself. So, alright, hopefully we're getting finished up here, and we get something I can show you out of AutoStacker. Let's see what we got here. Okay, alright, nice. There is the 30. Alright, so it's going to keep going. Now that it's done the 30, it's going to work its way down into the 20 here, the 15, and the 10. So it just did the 30 now. While it's still working, you can click on the file, and in this file it's going to give you some data. You'll always know what this data is for this image, and you can see it tells you exactly a little bit about it. And I'm just going to click on it and open it up, and you can see, let's rotate that, and let's do a little zoom in, show you what 30% looks like with so that's not too bad. You can see, of course, it's going to be blurry because it's not sharpened yet, but that's not too bad. Now the more you zoom in, the more blurry it's going to be, but you can see it's really smooth. Drizzle really smooths all the edges out and all the boxiness. If you don't use drizzle, you get a lot boxier of an image. Of course, our image quality isn't exactly spectacular with the cell phone videos, but when you fully back out of it, I mean, that's pretty cool looking right there as it is. If you wanted to keep just that image, you could, but I would recommend doing a little bit of sharpening to make it look a little bit better. Sorry. So, alright, now that we've got that, now you can leave this open if you want, and you can always go back, and we've already got the 20 in here. You can click on that, and we can open this, and let's rotate it, and I'm going to just move that over here to kind of compare so you can see what this one looks like compared to this one. And they pretty much look the same. It's not really a huge difference, to be honest with you, when you get to this point. Let me just drop that one down, and let's bump this one up and see what we got here. So, alright, there we go. So, maybe there's just a slight bit of difference, but really it's kind of unnoticeable if you ask me. I mean, you have to really balance image quality versus signal to noise ratio. The less images you use, the less signal to noise ratio, the more defined your planet's going to be. But then again, if you get out into really bad image quality and you use more images and you get those bad images, it's going to degrade your image as well. So you have to find that fine line. That's why I do 4 stacks, so I can go back and I can check and decide myself what I want to use for further processing. And looking at this here, so there's 3, the 30, the 20, and what was that, the 15 or the 10. So you can see it's hard to really tell the difference, but you can experiment with all the stacks to see which one comes out better. So that's kind of how we do that. Let's back out, and I imagine we probably got the last one. So yeah, that was the 15, and then here is the 10, and let me show you that. So yeah, maybe a little less quality, but hard to really tell. I don't normally use the 10. I'll use the 20, I'll use either the 30, the 20, or the 15, and most likely today we'll probably use the 30 or the 20. Alright, so now that we've got that done, let me minimize that. So that's finished. I'm just going to minimize that. So now we have those stacks done. We can open up Regstack 6. I don't think I have that open yet. Nope. So let me go ahead and click on Regstack 6, and what's going to happen is when it opens, it's going to ask you to stretch the intensity of the image, and just click no on that. We don't want to stretch the intensity, and in settings you can go ahead and you can declick that where you don't want to stretch the intensity in settings here. So alright, I don't want to use that quite yet. So now that we've got this open and you've got this open, you cannot, I repeat, you cannot drag this image. Oh, look at that. I served myself wrong. Usually you can't drag it over here to select, but apparently you can drag it over here to the window. Alright, well, hey, I guess I was wrong on that. Okay, alright, so now we've got that open. That's the image that I'm going to be using. The 30. This is the 30% stack. Alright, so now we've got that open. Okay, so now that this is open, we're in wavelets. Now, there's an align and stack that you can do. You don't have to use auto stacker. You can actually use an align and stack and Regstack 6 as well, and sometimes I get good results with that. But for this tutorial, we're going to be using auto stacker, and we're only going to be using these wavelets in Regstack 6. So I'm going to make the image full, show full image, and here these should be all automatically checked. Your default should be Gaussian blur, Gaussian, which is going to give us a denoise here and a sharpen here. Now, I'm not going to explain all these. We're in linear and Gaussian, so let's just stick with those. I'm not going to do too much else here touching it. Now, the important thing is these wavelets. And what will happen is if these are already at a 1, all of these, and the further you get down, the harder they are. I don't actually really like to use number 6, 5, or 4. A lot of times I'll just use 1 and 2, and sometimes 3. And 1 is pretty strong. Watch what happens if you take a 1, take this slider and slide it over to 100% of this percentage here. And then what you want to do is you want to hit do all, and it's going to go through each frame on this, and it's going to adjust the image, the entire image. And you can see it sharpened. It sharpened that really, really well. It's not so blurry anymore. We didn't use any denoise on that. Now if I take 2 and move it all the way over to 100%, now you can see how much more grainy that got. But we're going to hit all do anyway, and it's already at 100%. It did it all. Look how really grainy and over sharpened that is. Now we don't want that. Now what I normally do is I like to use a percentage of around maybe a 40 or 50, and what I'll do for this first one is I'm going to go ahead and put a 0.50 in there, and for the second one I'm going to go put a 0.40 in here for that one. That's our denoise, how much denoise is going to help. And I'm just going to go ahead and bump this all the way over to 100 again, and put this one all the way over to 100 again, and I'm going to click do all, and you can see we have maybe a little bit too much noise in there, so it's still not sharpened to the point that I want. So what I'm going to do, I think, is drop it down to 40 here, and let's go ahead and hit do all and just see what that looks like. So it's sharpened a little bit more. Let's go ahead and drop this one down to a 0.30 and then hit do all and see what happens with that. And that actually looks a lot better. That actually looks a lot better. So we did a max 100. We didn't adjust the sharpening level, only the denoise. And then now number 3, I'm going to add in a little bit here and just see what that does to it. And that sharpened it up a little bit more, and I didn't add any denoise to that yet. I might not have to. Again, it depends on the quality of your stack and the video that you got. So I did hit do all, and that actually looks pretty good. I mean, that sharpened up really good, and you can mess with these a little bit more until you get it where you want it, but just be really careful. Do not over sharpen. Do not over sharpen. It will look terrible when you zoom in. You don't want a grainy picture, and you can always adjust the noise over here. Now I'm at a 50 on that, and I think that looks pretty good actually. Now you do have some options over here, and one is the histogram. When you open the histogram, it'll show you your slider here where the histogram at, and you can change the color and darkness of your image by moving this slider, and you can actually decide what you want, what kind of color you want. Now the more you go to the left, the brighter it's going to be, and I wouldn't really suggest doing that, but again, that's up to you. Now if you get it to a point, oh, how do I get back? Just hit reset, and it will reset it to where it was, and then you can go back and put it where you want it again. Now in Registack 6, this is where you're most likely going to be your final adjustments are, unless you have Photoshop like I do. So something like this is where you're going to want to probably finish off at. There are other options in here, and you can mess with those. There's RGB align. I honestly don't mess with that. RGB balance if you hit auto balance, it's going to change the color of your planet, and then you see what happens. Those colors got a little bit different, and now we're away from our histogram, and I don't particularly like those colors in there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit reset on that, and I'm actually not going to use that. But with the histogram, I like to change the color. Now there's brightness and contrast over here. If you want to up the brightness, you can do it this way. If you want to up the contrast, you can do it this way. And then there's always a reset. So you can use these sliders here, or you can bump them up here. But I do that in Photoshop, but you can do it here. So you can see there's another denoising also here that you can use. If you have rings around the edges or something really strange around your planets, say you're doing Jupiter or the moon, you have blue rings, you can de-ring your planet, and there's a bright side and a dark side. There's so many different options in Registack 6 that you can use, but you'll have to experiment with them. I'm not going to get into all those today. I'm just showing you what I'm doing here with this histogram, and that's probably where I'm going to keep it. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take out histogram, make sure that I did do all one last time to make sure the whole image is finished, and you have everything where you want it here. Now, you want to save this. So you can come over here, click Save Image, and you can choose the file where you want to put it. So I was in AP30, and you can see AP30 here. So that's where I was. Now down here, this is going to be the same file folder as this one, and what I'm going to do is I'm just going to put RG6, so I know that I worked on that in Registack 6. It's going to save it as a TIFF 16-bit, and you can go ahead and save that, and then it should be down here, and in your file you'll see there's our stack TIFF, and then here is our image as a TIFF, and that looks pretty good. I would say that looks pretty good. I mean, look, that's nice and smooth, not over sharpened and not under sharpened. We didn't kill the planet. The colors look real good. Look, you can see some of the polar around the top. The Cassini division looks really, really good. Now, the more you zoom in, the worse it's going to look, to be honest. But we didn't kill it with sharpening, so you can zoom in and you can kind of see some of the features, but you know, don't expect a ton unless your conditions are extremely good. But look, we got the polar cap on Saturn. How cool is that? That's true awesome. But when you fully back out of it, back to the image, that looks really good. I'm stoked on how that came out. So this is kind of where you can finish off with something like this, with using PIPP, Registack 6, Auto Stacker. All these are free to use, and this is how I do it. Now, normally most people would stop here, but I'm going to show you what I did, or what I'm going to do, some things in Photoshop with this image. So let's go ahead, and I'm going to go ahead and just drop that down. Now, I've already got Photoshop open here, and this is one of my previous ones I was working on, and this one maybe not so great, but I'm going to show you some layers here. I adjusted the colors to darken the colors and show a bit more contrast, and then I did a topaz denoise to sharpen it a little bit, maybe a little over sharpened, but then I went in with a raw camera here, camera raw filter, which is awesome, has great features, and I leveled out the colors a little bit. I did an auto color, and then I added some tweaks to that saturation color, and then up here I added more saturation to really define the planet, the polar cap, and the lines. And I kind of like the blue colors in there. This is what came out. I didn't add these in. These colors just came out as I saturated them. So, you know, up to you what level you want to go to. Now, if I open if I open that file that we just did, if I take this and put it in here to Photoshop, this is my image, and let me just quickly show you some of the things you can do. So I'm going to duplicate the layer here, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to go up into that camera raw filter, open this up, and it's going to bring up some things where I can do a little bit more tweaking on Saturn. I have exposure controls, a lot of different controls, more contrast, more saturation, and it also has an auto color balance, which can be good or bad sometimes. And I have a lot of different options here in Photoshop. So this is one of the things I use here, is white balance. It's as shot as my image now. If I come down here and go to auto, it's going to auto do the colors to what, so it minus 15, it added in some blue from yellow, and it added in some green from purple. Now what's really cool is you can come down here and you can saturate those colors and make it look, wow, look at that. I saturated 100% on that, and it really brought those colors out, and I think that looks really natural, really nice. It's not overdone. Excuse me. I can work on the contrast a little bit more if I want to. I don't really want to go too much on the contrast. I'm going to keep that as it was. I can bump up the highlight, the color of the planet itself. I'm not going to mess with that too much. Shadows, the background shadows, you can see it kind of makes your blacks disappear. I'm not going to mess with that. I don't really want to get into that. Then there's whites and blacks, and then there's texture. You can change the texture of the planet. You can smooth it out, or you can make it more sharp, more pronounced, make your rings more pronounced. A little bit of texture, like a +10, I think would be good on that. Clarity really bumps up the clarity of everything. And you be real careful here. Overdo. Maybe just like a +5 for me. Now vibrance will, well, you see what happens when you do much vibrance. So that looks terrible. I don't want to mess with vibrance. I like the saturation at 100. I think this is a really natural looking planet. And then of course I can come down here into detail, and I can do more sharpening, more noise reduction, but I'm not going to mess with that. I'm going to keep it right where it was here, and I'm just going to go ahead and hit OK and watch what happens. I think that looks really natural. Let's zoom in. That looks really natural. If I take it away, I mean, it gave it a more natural look, a more defined look. So I'm going to go ahead and name that raw camera tweaks, because that's what I did. And then I'm going to stamp down a new layer, Shift Control Alternate E, and I'm going to try a little bit more sharpening. I have Topaz Denoise AI, and it does some good sharpening with the galaxies that I have. And sometimes it'll over sharpen and kill your planet, so you have to be real careful with it. But you can do custom. You can do a custom level with Topaz Denoise. I often use this on my galaxies to sharpen out the details. But just be real careful on it with the planets if you have it, and you'll see exactly what I'm talking about here once it opens up and gets into it. I usually do a custom control, but there's 4 different levels. There's a standard, there's a clear, there is a low light, and there's a severe noise. And each one does a little bit something different, and you can custom control each one. So Topaz Denoise is a little slow here today. Maybe it's because I got all those programs going. So we got one here is your original, and this is your processed. Now I've already got it on low light, and I've got it on automatic, and it looks like it's going to do a 15 denoise and a 63 sharpen. And you can zoom in here on the planet if you want. Let's go ahead and just, it looks like it's not wanting to work with me today. It's a little slow. but that's okay. But you can actually see the difference over here looking from what our image was out of Regstack 6, and then it's much more sharpened over here. And this is low light, and it'll keep a lot of the features. And now if I go down to severe noise, it's going to work on severe noise and automatic, and it looks like the same thing, 15 and a 63. So if you have a really noisy image, galaxy, planet, or something, you can use severe noise, and it's a little bit better, I think. And so going back and forth between low light and severe noise, which one looks better to you? The Cassini ring looks better, almost more defined in low light versus severe noise. I wish I could get this to zoom in on the planet. Oh, there we go. Okay, nice. So now we're zoomed in, and actually that doesn't look so good in there and severe noise. Let's try low light and see what happens in auto. A lot of times, like I said, it will actually kill your planet, so you have to be very careful with topaz denoise on planets, and yeah, that doesn't look so good. Now if we come up to standard, which is their standard overall general sharpening, and it's still on automatic, I haven't touched it, and let's see, that absolutely killed it. So topaz denoise is killing my image in automatic. Now if I come down here to low light, and I drop the sharpness down, I don't need so much noise removal. If I drop that down to like a 10, let's, like a half or something, let's go up to maybe like a 30 on low light and see what happens. Yeah, that still doesn't look so good. We have a more natural look here. It's over sharpening it, which I think excuse me, does not look good. So sharpening, too much sharpening, yeah, that does not look good in topaz denoise. Let's just try a little less and see what happens. It's absolutely killing it, I think. So we're not going to use topaz denoise. Now there are other options that you can use in Photoshop that will work as well. Up here we do have let's see, sharpen, and we have what's called an unsharp mask, and you can check with it and without it the amount of sharpening, the radius that you want to sharpen, and you can sharpen just a little bit. So I've already got this set. This is something I was using earlier, and let's just see what happens with 100%. And you before, and then you click on before and let go and see an after. So around 100% there. With a 2 pixel, you can even drop it down a little bit so it's not overkilling your pixels. And let's go ahead and hit OK, and then check before and after. So so slight that did sharpening, and you can always go back and do it more. I'm not going to over sharpen it because I think it will look terrible if you over sharpen it. I'm going to keep it just around here, and now I'm going to make sure I do what I did, unsharp mask, so I know what I did there. Now if you want to, you can also do more saturation. If you like this, there also is up here in image adjustments, you have hue and vibrance. You'll see saturation. You can really saturate that image even more if you want more. I don't want to overdo it, but for me, I really like the saturation of it, so maybe I might add in another 30% into that. And here I'm going to change that to saturation, and I'm going to name it Sat plus 30. And for me, I'm going to call that a finished image because I think that looks good. Something like that. We got a nice bluish hue, and you can see there's some really cool colors on top of Saturn that have come out. We've got, looks like, man, wow, look at that. Our Cassini division. It's not over sharpened. We have some definition. There's a lot more you can do to these planets, but this is just kind of something to get you going and show you exactly my workflow, what I do. I also have this Nick collection that I use, and this is a whole separate tool set for doing things kind of I used over here on this one. You can see it's a little bit different, different colors, different saturation. This one has a more natural look to it. This one has a little bit over, maybe oversaturated a little bit, but I use this Nick collection on this one to do some things, and I did use Topaz and Noise. So to be honest with you, I really like this one. It came out great today. I'm stoked with this one. I'm going to keep this and post this on my social media and use it for this tutorial. So now we want to save this. So there's a couple different things you can do to save it. With your layers, you can come over here to File, and you can save as. Make sure you click Save As on your PC. And here is the file where our earlier images were, our stacked TIFF, our Registack, and here I'm going to put in PS layers because that's what we did here. Make sure is layers are clicked and your ICC profile is clicked. It's a TIFF, and I'm going to save that and make sure you don't need any compression. This, don't touch that. Keep it on your PC unless you have a Mac, and on this one, and just hit save. Yes, it will increase the file size with layers. So once that's done, the next thing that I like to do is come over here to layer, and I'm going to flatten the image, all those layers into one, and then I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to come back to save as, save on my PC, and it's going to bring it up. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to call this PS flat, and I'm going to save it as PS flat, and the same thing, same settings I used before, and now I've got it saved. And with PS flat, you can go ahead, you can use it in other programs, and you won't have to worry about bringing up all those layers. Now another thing you can do from here is you can go into File, and you can come to Export and Export As, and this is going to be important if you want to post this on social media. You can't post TIFFs on social media. You're going to want to change this to either a JPEG or a PNG. Now JPEG is a compressed image, and it may make your quality suffer a little bit, so I'm using a PNG with less compression. I think with a PNG, now that's up to you. You can come up here and put it on a JPEG. I've experimented with both. It's hard to really say, but I know JPEG does compress things pretty good. So I've been trying this PNG file to see what happens. And you can change the size here. You can put in the size and make it bigger, your height and width. But I'm not going to mess with that now. I'm going to keep it just as it is. So I'm going to export it as a PNG, and I can use this file to post on my social media. So I'm going to export that, and it's going to bring it over to the file. Where do I want to put it? Now this is where you're going to have to go back in and find your files that where you had it saved, and I know exactly where mine is. It's in here. It's in this one. Let's open that up. Let's change the view. And I was using the 30. So there they are. I should have my PS layers, PS flat, bridge stacks, and my original stack TIFF. And here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to put PNG in there, so I know that it's a PNG file, but it does say PNG over here, and I'm going to save that in this location. And boom, that is done and saved, and there we go. Alright guys, well, we've come to the end of this video, and there is our Saturn. That's how I do it, how I stack and process with those programs. And go ahead and download those and give it a shot, see what you can do. I'm going to see if I can include some of my Saturn video to my Google Drive for this tutorial. So if maybe you might see that in the description, you might not. but you can try with my video if you don't have your own video, and experiment, see what you can do, see what you can get for this. But I think it came out pretty good today. I am extremely stoked with this. I think that's an awesome looking image, and looking at it from really small, of course it's going to look really better, but the more you zoom in on it, the more you're going to notice. But it's still really smooth, and we have a lot of colors in here. You know, Saturn is actually a pretty colorful planet, believe it or not. There are a lot of things going on. So there we go. Alright guys, well, again, appreciate you following along, hanging in there. I know this might have been a little bit long video, but I wanted to make sure you got to see exactly my workflow, because I know a lot of people have been asking, and I'm sorry it's taken a little longer, but we got to it, we got through it, and this is how you do it. So please like this video if you think it was helpful. I appreciate everybody out there following Smartphone Astro. I'm excited to see how many people are interested in doing this, and I've got a lot of videos planned. I'm probably going to do in my next a galaxy stacking image in Sequitur to show you how I do my stacking, because I think that's going to be really helpful. So again guys, thanks for watching and hanging in there. Comments welcome. Check out all my social media accounts, you'll see those at the end of this video. And until next time guys, we got Mars coming, so look forward to Mars. Until next time, next video, clear skies everybody. Alright, take care, see y'all soon.